I remember after my divorce, like it felt like my right arm was chopped off and I didn't even know how to be as like a single person because I was in a 7-year relationship, And it felt like there's this huge void in my life for like the biggest like figure in my life. And I can't go back to like working or doing anything until I've like figured out this like problem, insert someone else, and, very quickly I was just like, okay, I'm just like going to get on a dating app and like find my Capricornus, just like find someone and like move on. Obviously, I went on a date, maybe it was like 2 months after it. I was so not ready in any way. And I remember thinking, I was like, okay, like it's, they say after 3 months, or they say it's after 6 months, or like giving this like time, or I would like ask my friends, I'm like, when does it stop hurting? Like around when? Like, as if there would be like this moment that it's like, and now you are totally healed and totally over it. And what it taught me was that, thank Goddess, my spirit guides or whoever else protected me from getting into a relationship, even though that's what I actually wanted, because I would have just gone into a relationship that had the exact same patterns and that version of me would have played out that story or, whatever lesson it was I was learning at that time and at that time. And, after a few months went by and I would realize, I'm like, oh, thank God that person I had like a huge crush on 3 months ago never happened, because I would have been stuck on this idea of like what I share on social media is too much. And I would have done that, or this idea of like, what will whatever think. And as time went by, I'm recognizing I am meeting new versions of myself and new versions of myself. So the longer I kind of wait to get into a relationship, which doesn't mean wait forever, like they will be meeting a totally different version of me.
Yeah.
And it wasn't this intentional thing like you talk about in the book, because I definitely and I think a lot of us who go through big divorces and breakups, the last thing you want to hear is don't date, because you're like, well, I was so lonely in the marriage. That what I really want is romance and intimacy and passion. But I unintentionally entered into this celibacy journey that I have been in ever since. And it has been the most liberating and healing thing, a liberated love, because it showed me that had I gotten into relation and even sexual relationship with certain people, is like, as a woman, you start creating those oxytocin bonds and you start, even like what I feel society tells us to do is like, just have your situationship, until like you find that person. But then what happens is you start to try to make your situationship your relationship, and inevitably, and they went into it, and at least a lot of them are honest that they don't want that. And then women are biologically now connected to this person. So for me, choosing to abstain from being in any kind of situationship has allowed me to like fully do that healing work on myself, meet new parts of myself, not be tied to someone that I knew going into it I wouldn't have been a fit with, simply because I was lonely at that time. And that's also what allowed me to travel. Like, when I, for example, I was telling you I was living in London, I was like, oh yeah, I'm totally gonna like find a British guy. And I didn't. However, if I did, when my place was broken into in London, could I have just like left the next day? No, because I would have been in a relationship.
Yeah.
So I do feel that sometimes we are divinely protected, even in a way that like you consciously wouldn't have chosen from yourself, that it's like God protecting us of like, let me create this energetic field around you. And I've spoken to so many women. At first I was like, I'm being cosmically cock blocked. Like, why is it not working? Yeah.
That's a great term.
Exactly. But now I'm like, oh no, it was like the most divine protection, because now, when you have a crush on someone, it's like all you can see is the good. And then you get out of the bubble, you're like, what was I thinking there? And because I didn't have that oxytocin bond going on, I could just move on. So I love that you recommend that. And I highly recommend for people who, especially if they do have that propensity to merge with someone, to be on, whether it's a celibacy journey or a not dating journey or whatever the thing is, to bring that power back into themselves.
Yeah. I mean, that's everything you shared. So powerful. Cosmic cock block. I'm definitely going to remember that one.
Yeah.
It's interesting because we either repeat the pattern so we can change it, or what you're inferring or saying is that we're not going to be allowed to repeat it. Like, I think of all relational challenges as being this opportunity to learn finally. Like, finally will it be enough? It's interesting how as humans, we usually have to wait till it's so bad that we have to change. And I think you start, after you've experienced a dark night of the soul, after you've experienced someone betraying you, leaving you. I think the things that are not optional, like when we don't choose a dark night, when we don't, those are actually the hardest because we're holding two things that are opposing. One is that I didn't choose this. Like, why would I'm not choosing this pain. I'm not choosing this discomfort. It's like when someone passes away unexpectedly. You're like thrust into an experience, into grief. And we live in a culture that is really grief phobic, pain phobic. The message we send to people is that if you're sad, there's something wrong with you. If you have anxiety or depression, there's something wrong with you. And I'm like, whoa, like these are the exact responses that are appropriate to the environment you're in, to the experiences you're having within your body. And can we actually turn to them from a place of curiosity? And instead of brokenness, from a place of like, wow, this is coming up for me. Wow, okay, what is it inviting me to do? Man, but I think of, relational patterns that just cause us to be like, what? How am I still doing this? And that's when the pattern is it's not here, it's actually in the nervous system, it's familiar. And so to actually choose something different, which the sacred pause, which is really about cultivating literal space and figurative space between stimulus and response. So then, because you've waited you've endured the storm. You've allowed all your greatest fears, like Kai when she was in her sacred pause between our relationship, which is really what you call a breakup when you get back together. Otherwise, it's just a breakup. But she was saying that, I thought I was going to die. Like I wasn't sourcing energy from anyone. I wasn't texting, sexting, doing anything. And I actually thought I was going to die, even though that was not a relevant thought. But if you've always depended on people, always tried to source from the male gaze, for example, is the example she gives, then who are you without the validation of someone validating your worth through their desire? Yeah. Then you're just a soul. You're just a person. And our book looks through things like masks we wear, right? Blind spots that we have, because these are all ways that we don't reveal ourselves. And it's like, you can't just reveal yourself to anybody. You start to learn how to do it with people who are trusted in that journey, who want to reveal themselves too. Mm-hmm. And like, if we could use the frictions of our masks, of our reactivity, of our blind spots to actually say, I see this in you. How do we heal that? How do you heal the abandonment of a father? How do you heal maybe the reactivity of a mother? How do you heal cultural wounds? What a gift that is in relationship. Like, it's not like you've just been healing like that you had a betrayal. Yeah. You're like, holy smokes, this isn't just mine. That's why it's, taken. I mean, I acknowledge your commitment to your transformation.
Yeah, thank you. And I think that, there's these funny reels I see sometimes. It's like what life feels like when you don't like have a crush on someone, and it's like so boring and stuff, that I think a lot of us even find our entertainment in it. The entertainment of like, oh my God, did they watch my stories? Like, oh my God, like we matched on this app. And I can speak for women. It's like the fantasy, like we love it. And it gives us this, maybe like this little pep in our step and like feels like something to live for, but it's like, but that's still the codependency.
Right.
I have something to live for if this person that I don't even know might potentially like me, because it's still that Disney princess within us that just wants to be chosen.
Right. And really, we've taught people that if you're not chosen, there's not evidence of the recognition of your value.
Right.
So even relationally, we say,
and then we deem this person,
right?
You who I have put on the pedestal of like my value of myself. If you don't choose me, then this is evidence that my dad never loved me. Like right. That is literally what we do.
Same.
Exactly.
And I always say to people that when you lose something that you place your value in, it's to remind you that it doesn't live there. Mm-hmm. And that opportunity to recognize that when someone walks out of your life or doesn't choose you or ghosts you, which not saying any of those things aren't painful, but if like every ounce of who you think you are or your self-worth or your well-being lives in that, thank God, because that is an opportunity to recognize it does not. And what a huge pressure for someone to hold, to be in relationship with you, that they need to be in relationship with you for you to have well-being and happiness. That's something I don't want to carry. I want to contribute to and be part of someone creating that. Like my life is enormously better because I have my wife in it and my son. But it doesn't complete me. Sorry, Jerry Maguire, but it doesn't.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's that, this idea that a lot of us women have of like, I need to be chosen. And like, and I will say part of it does come from this like deep feminine yearning of like wanting someone to like fully love you and see you and hold you and all parts of you and only want to be with you. And that's such a beautiful thing.
It is, yeah.
However, it's that we then place it upon someone that hasn't even earned that role in our lives.
Right. We give it to people without discernment.
Exactly.
Like, are they actually a good fit for that honor?
Right. And they say that women start men at 100 and men start women at 0. Have you heard this?
I actually have, I think. I was very fascinated by it.
Which is so true.
True too.
So it's like when, for a woman, let's say she like matches with someone on a dating app and they're talking little, she's like, oh, I've found the one.
Right.
He's perfect. You look at his pictures like a million times. You're like texting it to all your friends. You're so excited. You're like, he's it. He's perfect. You're planning, he's going to be my date at this wedding and this is what our life's going to look like and my wedding dress and all the things. And the man probably feels nothing towards you. It's that you're a stranger to him, So just the difference there. So then the woman, like, he texted me back all of these things like they mean so much. For the guy, it's nothing. Then as the woman gets to know the guy, she's like, oh, he's not perfect. And he's this and he's that. It starts to go down. As he gets to know her, he's like, oh, she's kind of cool. Oh yeah, I kind of like her. Da, da, da. And then it reaches this point that like the woman might be over him. And he's like, oh, I actually finally like you now.
That's funny. I think those also represent that one side is generally more anxious. Like women are more prone to anxious, and men are more prone to avoidant. Because I definitely identify with the start at 100 more.
Interesting.
Like I was more like when I met my wife, now wife, but when I met her,
is she more avoidant?
Oh yeah, yeah. Like so avoidant that when I asked her to read the book Attached, she didn't read it, and I was like, babe. You're going to actually laugh when you get to the part on avoidance because the irony is not lost upon me that you've avoided this book. We talk about attachment styles in the book because we found that framework is actually just incredibly helpful, but we overlay how the nervous system is actually correlated to that, which I really
Why can't like two of us anxious people just find each other? I'm like, why can't we love of girls with love of boys? Like, why do we have to find the opposite?
We have to because one, it validates our experience of the world, and two, it validates the nervous system's memory of what love is. So we can't because it wouldn't allow us to heal.